Hello, thanks for listening. This is Justin Nimmo, better known as Zhane, the Silver Power Ranger from Power Rangers in Space from 1998. You're listening to my interview with Elaine Goodman on Gogoodman.com.au.
Most Ranger actors I've interviewed have a background in either martial arts, gymnastics, or dancing. What was your background in?
Actually, my background was in wrestling. Now, I wrestled all through high school and into college, so that was kind of what I would say would be my form of martial arts that I studied the most, but I actually took some martial arts classes in California, and the actual martial arts was called Bojuka. It stands for boxing, judo, and karate, and it was multiple opponents and with weapons and stuff like that. So I did have enough background so that if they asked me at the audition to be able to perform any kind of stuff, that at least I'd have something for them.
When did acting become the aim for you? Was that always your intention?
No, going through high school, it never much crossed my mind. But out of high school and I started going to college, that would have been in about the year 1993. My mother worked at a place called Department of Public Safety, and we carpooled on the way to school and work. So I would drop her off, and I'd drive on up to school, and then on my way home, I'd pick her up, and we'd go back to the house. And one day she told me that there was a lady that she worked with that I needed to talk to. She was co-owners of a local talent modeling agency called OTMA, or OMT, Oklahoma Model and Talent Association. And I said, well, yeah, that's fine. I don't mind going in there and talking to her. So I stopped in one day and had a brief little conversation with her, and she said that she'd really like to have me come visit with the actual owner of the company. But she wanted me to take some pictures to bring in and show her, and I said, that's fine. I'll get it taken care of. So I was working at Outback Steakhouse, and
so that's where all models start.
Yeah. So the girl that was working with me, she took some pictures, and I showed it to this lady, and she looked at him, and she said, oh, that's going to win. And I was like, win what? She said, this picture right here with the smile. We're going to go to a competition in Los Angeles, and I'm going to enter that picture into a competition, and it's going to win. And I was like, whatever you say, because I didn't know what she was talking about. And sure enough, we raised our money, and we made it out to Los Angeles to a really big modeling convention that they had out there, and entered into I think it was 12 different categories, and one of them happened to be Best Smile, and it won first place. It was IMTA, International Model and Talent Association, by a lady named Helen Rogers, but that one picture did win first place at the entire convention, and I think I'd placed in 9 of the other things that I was entered into. So some of the modeling agencies that were there and talent agents said, hey, if you'll move to California, we'd like to represent you. So shortly after that, I moved out to California and met with a couple of them, got representation, and started going out on auditions and more auditions and more auditions. So, I bet I probably went on a good 1,000 auditions, sometimes 2 or 3 a day. Wow. It was a lot of work, but, it was fun. I tried to keep track of it by writing down in a book what it was that I wore, where I went, and what I did, so that if they were to call me back, I would wear exactly what I had on the first time, because my manager had told me, if you wear the same thing you had the first time, it might have been what made them like you, so wear it the second time. It's like, okay. So, I filled up a couple of books worth of auditions coming and going, booking the jobs from there.
Did you win money from winning all those competitions, or placing in those competitions and winning the Smile one?
In that convention, no.
What did you win?
There was no kind of money as in financial rewards. They would give out like a certificate saying that you had won it, but the whole idea behind going to that convention is for the agents that are there, they're right. Scouting for new talent. So they show up to see the new faces and find people that they want to bring them out to represent them and get them work. Because once they, say they want me and I sign up with them and I go out on an audition and I book the job, they would get a percentage of it. So they always want the new face and somebody that's good and different so that that agency can basically get the job and get them some money out of it.
Do you remember what some of the shows were that you auditioned for? Like, were you solely going in as an actor, or did you do some modelling on the side as well to keep the money coming in?
I was actually doing modeling at the same time. My modeling agency was LA Models, and the other agent that I had was Acme Talent. So, yes, I did modeling at the same time. I don't remember a whole lot of the modeling jobs. There were several of them. One of them was doing a catwalk wearing some shoes for one company. Another one was taking pictures that were going to be put onto, like, covers of love books, novels. They put them on the cover of the books. There were some print jobs for some clothing companies and things like that. So I kind of did both of them at the same time.
What was some of the early acting auditions you went to?
Well, I did for, let's see, her name was Christy Alley had a show. I was on that one. Saved by the Bell, Nick Freno, licensed teacher. Actually flew out to New York for an audition on a soap opera, and that was pretty exciting. They actually put me up in a hotel right there at Times Square, so looking out the window, I was just looking down at how busy the world was 24 hours a day. So, yeah, I went out on everything. I would go out on movies as well. One of the movies that I went out on was 7 Years in Tibet that has Brad Pitt in it, and I was supposed to play his son. However, the character that they did use for that was much younger than me at the time. But when I went to the audition downtown Los Angeles, it was a really tall building, and I had to go up to the 12th floor, I think it was. And when I walked into the office, the girl kind of looked at me twice, and I was like, "Is there something wrong?" She said, "No, actually, I thought you were Brad there for a minute. He just left." I was like, "Oh, well, darn, I missed him." So he was probably going down the elevator as I was coming up the elevator, and it kind of shocked her because she thought he came back wearing something else, I guess. But unfortunately, I guess I looked too much like him, and I was too old because I didn't get that job.
You couldn't have taken Brad Pitt's spot?
Well, you would think, but I did some lookalike work for him.
Oh, wow.
Never did actually do any kind of stand-in stuff. The lookalike work would be if a big company, say Coca-Cola, was having a real big party with all of their executives, and they wanted to entertain them with some lookalikes. Then they'd call a lookalike agent, which I probably had 4 or 5 of those, and they would submit who they have that would fit the character that they're looking for. So you would show up at the Coca-Cola party, and you just walk around talking to guests, and they would think that you're Brad Pitt or the president or Madonna or whoever it is that they wanted, and you just kind of mix and mingle with them. One of the other lookalike jobs that I did was for a Japanese movie theater. They were opening up a movie theater in Japan somewhere, and they had filled up most of a movie theater with a whole bunch of different lookalikes. That was pretty fun, really easy. Kind of odd that day I was trying my best not to look like Brad Pitt, but that didn't work because everybody thought I was still Brad Pitt.
Was that a fun job, even though you're known as somebody you're obviously not, or almost obviously not?
Yeah. Actually, all of them were fun. I enjoyed everything that I did from acting to modeling, print work,
impersonating.
The lookalike work stuff was really fun. I never got into doing any kind of voiceovers or any kind of comic books. I didn't do any writing. I never wrote any kind of stuff. Didn't ever really get into theater. Never got up on a theater stage and performed either.
Your first credit was on Saved by the Bell in 1996, and I found the scene on YouTube, which was kind of cool. How long into your acting career did that audition come up? Was that one of the early ones?
I think I had went out on probably 5 or 6 auditions and ended up booking a commercial for a company called Applebee's. I was a waiter, and it was a principal role for Applebee's. So when I got that job, I was not SAG at the time, so they did they Tafted me. Most actors would know what that means, so Taft-Hartley into becoming SAG at that point. And it was probably within, say, 6 months or less that I ended up getting the Saved by the Bell job, and that one was as a wrestler, so that was really easy for me to do. But I remember the funny thing about that was the character that I had to wrestle against, one of the main principals. Evidently, he was actually dating one of the other principals, and when we wrestled, I guess I roughed him up a little bit. I put a strawberry on him, and his girlfriend was trying to take care of him.
Were you ever invited back?
Not to Saved by the Bell that I know of. I think I went back on another audition, but it wasn't like Saved by the Bell themselves had called and requested me or anything, no.
Then you joined the Power Rangers family in Power Rangers in Space. First question I want to ask is, did you already have bleach blonde hair back then?
No. Actually, when I got the call to go audition for that, I thought, I've heard of them. I know a little bit about the Power Rangers. That will be fun. I don't mind going and doing that. And after I did that first audition, I found out I had a second audition and then a third audition. Well, the final audition that I ended up doing was basically to go meet Suki up in his, penthouse suite, and got to walk in there with my books and sat down and actually talk to him one-on-one. One of the questions he had asked when he was looking through my portfolio, he had seen where I had my hair bleached at one time for a photo shoot, and he said, I think this right here would nail it. Would you be willing to bleach your hair for the job? And I was like, man, if that's what it takes, you got it. So I bleached my hair for the Power Rangers.
What color was it?
And it's actually a dark brown.
Yeah.
So in order to get it as light as they wanted, they had to do a lot of work to get it that color, because it basically killed my hair. It was like straw. I mean, it was pretty much falling out of my head. But every day that you go in to do makeup and wardrobe and stuff, they would in the beginning, they would put a bag over my head and pull little strands of hair out of holes. They call it frosting. They pull little pieces of hair out in chunks, and then they would put silver onto those pieces and then pull the bag off, so I'd have like silver spikes in my hair. A lot of people don't know that, and it was kind of hard to pick up on the screen. And later on in the season, instead of putting the bag on, they would just kind of reach in there with their hands and grab a few pieces of it and color it silver. And then a few months later, they'd have to go and fix my roots, the part down real deep in your hair, because it was starting to grow out and be brown again. So they'd have to fix that.
Now, you were probably a little bit older than the main demographic for Power Rangers when you got the role. You said you knew a little bit about it. How much did you know about it? And did you remember when it was big when it started in 93, 94? Well, to be honest with you, in 93, 94, I was going to college and in the fraternity and wrestling and working. I didn't have a whole lot of time to even watch a whole lot of television to know what was going on. Now, I was aware of them. I knew what they did and how they wore the suits and how they fought against the villains. But I didn't really follow them to know a whole lot about them. Whenever I got the audition, like the third audition, and I went back and told my friends that I had booked the job, some of them were laughing at me, saying, no, you're going to be in a suit and you're going to look funny or whatever. And I just looked at them and I said, well, if anybody's laughing, it's me laughing at you as I go to the bank with a paycheck. Yeah.
So that went over pretty well with them. They all left me alone. And as the series went on and the episodes kept going, then they were more proud of me and happy and enjoyed the fact that I was lucky enough to actually get the job. So they were better supporters at that point.
Did you prefer the Power Ranger suit or the unmorphed suit they wore on the ship, or were they both horribly
horrible and horribly tight. Because I've talked to Christopher Kamen Lee, and he said they almost suffocated him. They were so tight.
Well, the morph suit was, I guess a good word would be snug. However, the material was giving, so it had some stretch to it, but it was kind of revealing, if you know what I mean, by wearing just that suit. So I wasn't real comfortable with that suit. I would prefer the ship suit, yes.
Yeah, those skivvies looked really, really tight.
Yeah. It was kind of like wearing a pair of pantyhose over your entire body. Now they make morph suits that you can buy, but it was definitely new back then.
What are your memories of the whole experience? Did you get recognized much in the street? Did you ever get to keep a toy of yourself? What do you remember?
After the show was over, I did purchase some of the toys, and I kept them for a little while, but over the years I had lost most of what I had, so I still have a few. As far as being recognized for the character of a Power Ranger just walking down the streets in Los Angeles, don't recall that ever happening. I mean, people would more so either every once in a while might say, hey, we saw you on Pleasantville, or 90% of the time it was, hey, aren't you Brad Pitt?
Really?
And it's kind of funny, Brad Pitt's from Shawnee, Oklahoma, and I'm not too far from Shawnee, Oklahoma, so some people think that we're either related or I am him back here playing the role of something else. So living here, people have actually thought that I was him, and now that I've been here for a few years, they're pretty aware of who I am. Don't get it quite as much now.
So what else do you remember about the show? I mean, the hype had started to die down a bit from the original series. Did you remember any of the fanfare, or what did the producers tell you about the ratings or anything like that?
You know, I don't really remember a whole lot about them coming in and telling us how well we're doing. There were a few times that they would kind of come in and give us like a pep talk, I guess, and let us know that things were looking better and doing better and that they were really happy. Obviously, something must have been going right, because when I was first on the Power Rangers, like maybe the first one or two episodes, it was an AFTRA, and after that it turned into SAG. So obviously it definitely got better at that point. And one of the things I remember most about it was the amount of fan mail that came in. I mean, I was really shocked. I didn't know that people sent that much mail. You know, there was boxes of it. And when I was growing up, you know, I never wrote to any actors to think that people actually did that. And then when I got in that spot and got boxes of fan mail, it was pretty shocking, for sure.
Did you ever get to meet Brad Pitt in your earlier years?
Nope, never did.
No.
The closest I got was actually the point
lift.
where I was auditioning for, you know, to be his son, and we went up one elevator and he went down the other one.
Damn, man, you could have
Yeah,
almost moved in with him. He might have adopted you.
Yeah, you never know. He might have took me under his wing and been possibly doing several movies with him between now and then.
Did you keep in touch with your castmates after the show?
I did keep in touch with them, more so in the beginning. As time went by, it became harder to stay in touch with them. The Red Power Ranger, Christopher Lee, we stayed in touch throughout time. There was, you know, sometimes that we would go longer without being able to communicate for whatever reason, and then sometimes we would talk 2 or 3 times a week or whatever, but now we definitely talk a whole lot more now than pretty much ever in the past. I know right after the Power Rangers was over, we had went to like a state fair of California together, and you know, we definitely hung out for a little while. We bonded more so, the two of us, than I did with any of the other Rangers at the time.
And when was the last time you talked to the rest of the actors? Do you remember?
Well, I've got a couple of them on Facebook that I communicate with. I haven't talked to Patricia or Ashley in just about as long as it's been over, I guess. You know, wasn't in contact with them much after it was over, but I've got 3 of them that I still have as friends on Facebook that we talk with each other.
You didn't have many acting credits after Power Rangers. Were you still interested in an acting career when it finished?
At the time, yes, yeah. I was. You know, I had done a movie called Pleasantville with Reese Witherspoon and Tobey Maguire. That was really fun because when I was on the set one day, I heard one of the other actors talking, and I knew who it was, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to go meet them. So, yeah, I was still interested after it was over. I had got into doing physical training, you know, like a personal trainer for weightlifting and stuff to kind of help with the bills. And after that, I had done some massage therapy, taken a little college for massage therapy. And when my current wife ended up pregnant, she had said that it was a little rough in California and it'd be better if we were near family. So I said, well, I would rather be a part of my family and go wherever it is that we go. So we had decided that we would move back to Oklahoma at that time. So when I came back here, I tried to use some of the massage therapy that I had learned as a form of income, but yeah, it wasn't much of a happening thing in Oklahoma at the time, so that didn't go over so well.
So what did you do when you moved back to Oklahoma? You mentioned the personal training. Did you go back into modeling, or was there much modeling in Oklahoma? Or what did you do? Not
much of the entertainment business in Oklahoma. If I was to really try hard, I guess I could probably get little print ads for some stuff, or maybe up at the colleges every once in a while they'll bring in a crew and shoot a movie here in Oklahoma. But you know, you've got to be kind of ready to go when that happens. They don't get a whole lot of notice sometimes. So really pretty much had stopped at that point as far as the entertainment goes. I had tried to do a job for selling insurance, like cars, homes, and life insurance and stuff, and that wasn't for me. I didn't like a desk job. I needed something where I could get up and move around and go places. So a friend of mine had said that I should come and work with him at a rent-to-own store, and I went and applied for that job. And
what does that mean, rent-to-own?
It is basically you wanted to purchase something like a big television, but you don't have the money to go out and buy it cash. You can go into a rent-to-own store and still acquire ownership of that item by making payments,
right,
weekly or monthly payments over a period of time until you do own it.
Yeah, so it's like a phone bill.
With that company. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
it's kind of like
you keep paying the bill until you own it outright.
Yes.
And then you can change your plan or whatever.
Yeah. And it's very flexible. You know, you're allowed to pay it off early for a discount and stuff like that. So a lot of people definitely take advantage of it. They're not required to keep anything. They can return it if they don't want it. Where if you buy it on a credit card and you can't afford to pay for it anymore, you can't just take it back and not make any more payments. So I ended up working for that company for 5 years and then opened up my own rent-to-own store that I've had since 2004. So that's been quite a few years that I've had that going.
And what kind of things do you sell?
Do furniture, as in living room furniture, bedroom furniture, televisions, appliances like refrigerators, stoves, washers and dryers, computers, game stations, mattresses, pretty much all home furnishings.
Did you ever consider returning, or have you ever considered returning to acting? Or when your kid gets a little bit older?
If it was possible, it would be fun. In order to make it possible, I would have to hire people to run the business that I have, because if I was to be gone for 2 or 3 weeks or a couple of months at a time, the people that make their payments, on a weekly or monthly basis, there would be nobody here for them to make their payments to. So in order to continue with it, I would definitely have to have employees that were able to run the business while I was gone.
Now I think it's in about a week or two, you've got your first convention appearance. I think, is that at Lexington?
No, it's actually in Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma, so it's right close to home, right near home.
Yes.
What brings you back into the fandom?
Christopher, the Red Power Ranger, had contacted me and told me about his conventions that he does, where he, signs autographs for the fans, and how he gets to meet everybody and have fun, and it actually helps support him. There is an income with it. So he was coming to Oklahoma and said he wanted to do a little meet and greet where you basically sit down and sign autographs for people, and wanted to know if I'd be interested in doing it with him. And I was like, well, sure. I haven't seen you in many years. I definitely want to hang out with you, and if I need to sit down and sign autographs at the same time, that's fine. We don't mind doing that. So I told him that I would do it, and now we actually have it set up to sit down with whoever it is that shows up, spend some time with them, and let them take home, an exclusive Power Ranger signed autograph, and they'll basically be making history because this is the first time that Red and Silver have teamed up since the show ended. So, making history.
Do you think you'll get onto the convention circuit regularly?
It would be hard to do it regularly, and I know there's several of the Power Rangers that do 2 or 3 a month, and a few of them travel overseas to do that. And like I said, in order for me to leave my business, it's really hard to actually be able to be gone for very long. So if it was something that was maybe 2 or 3 times a year or just a weekend type thing, then it's a little more flexible and it could happen. So there's definitely some interest. There have been having a lot of fans on the fan pages asking about it. The official Justin Nimmo Facebook site and the Justin Nimmo on Instagram. There's been a lot of people saying that they would like to have me come to where it is that they're located, whether it's overseas or somewhere here in the U.S. They just want to be able to see me and get to tell me about how they watched my character evolve on the show back when they were kids.
Is that surreal for you? Did you think it was still out there, or is that something you're interested in? Or
well, I knew that the Power Rangers were still going on. I mean, I have kids, and everybody in town always said something about being a Power Ranger. So there was a little while that my kids had watched the Power Rangers. So I knew that every year there were a new show that came out, and people would always ask me, how come you're not doing it still? And I have to explain to them, the actors that are on Power Rangers are not old, really. So if they kept the same person forever, then they tend to age and can't quite perform like they would before. The other thing about it is when one person stays on the show for a very long time, once they decide they want to move on and they leave the show, it hurts the ratings for the show. So they actually preferred to be getting new cast each year so that wouldn't be a problem.
Do you have fond memories of your time on Power Rangers? Is it something you look back on and say, I'm glad I did that?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't take it back. I definitely think about it all the time, of the things that we got to do and see and hang out and have fun together. I know there was a scene towards the end of the season that my father had came out to California and was there during the shoot and got to see us actually in action. So that was pretty fun. I've thought about that a few times.
And before we get into the fan questions, where can people find you? Just mention again your social media.
Yes, there's a Facebook, it's official Justin Nimmo, and on Instagram, it's just Justin Nimmo, JUSTINNIMMO. So those two sites have been up for, I think at this point, a little over a month maybe, and pretty shocked that there was as many people following as what there has been. It blew up pretty fast.
Are you a fan of social media? Because I don't think you've done much of it before, not in the spotlight, obviously. Are you a fan of it?
I think social media is a great way of staying in contact with not only fans, but friends and family that are at distances that you don't get to see very often. So I definitely like social media. It keeps you intact with the world, basically.
All right, now let's get into the fan questions. Andrew from New Jersey wants to know, since you left Power Rangers in Space, we've touched on this a little bit already, since you left Power Rangers in Space, have you been on any other acting projects, and what do you love mostly about your fans?
Well, thanks, Andrew. Actually, after I had moved back to Oklahoma, I do remember going back out to California for a game show. I want to say it was something like The Weakest Link or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, something like that. You know, they would ask you questions and you had to answer answers. But I didn't last a long time on that one. I got some hard question, I guess. But I had went back out for that because they had hired some lookalikes to be on the show. So, like, there was, let's see, Brad Pitt and his girlfriend at the time, Jennifer
Aniston.
There was a president of the United States. There was a singer, and then there was a comedian, I believe. So there was a few of us on the game show, and when they set it up, they said, you know, if you win or whatever it is that you do win, you can donate it to a charity of your choice at that time. So I do remember doing that after I came back to Oklahoma. The other thing that I guess you could call it acting, it was pretty down my alley at the time when I said I was working for that company called Rent a Center. They actually shot a training video in the store that I worked in. I think there was like 1,500 stores, and they just so happened to shoot the training video in the store that I was working at, and I got to be an actor in that training video for everybody.
And what do you love mostly about your fans? He also asked.
Partly the fan mail was really something that stuck out in my head, and then as of today, just hearing people be able to talk to me and say that I was something of an influence to them as they were growing up. You know, they really enjoyed watching not just the show, but they say, you know, we really liked what you did and your character on the show and how you evolved, and we wish that the writers would have brought you back the next year like, you know, they had done with some of the other characters at the time, because your series was basically breaking ground and changing things. So learning what all the fans have to say about it is actually, I learned a lot out of that.
I didn't realize that lookalikes were so popular in Hollywood. Did you know that was a business outside of acting when you got into it?
No. I was actually at the gym one day whenever a girl named Madonna came up to me and she said, "Oh, you look like so-and-so, you should try that." And I was like, "Okay, what do I do?" And she basically just kind of helped me get that going, and at that point then I realized there was a really big market with it.
Michael from Rosemead, California wants to know, what's the weirdest noise you can make with your mouth?
Well, Michael, that's a good question. There is two things, I guess, that I make with my mouth that are probably not the most common. One of them I learned as a kid from my mom, and that's how to talk like Donald Duck.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to understand some of the words as Donald Duck talks, but I can definitely get a few of those out. And then the other one is to make a whistle that sounds like a cell phone. So
I'm going to have to hear both of them.
well, the whistle would be... So it's kind of like my call. If I'm trying to get my kids' attention, then I just do the little whistle, and they all know it's me. If I walk into a room and nobody knows I'm there, I can whistle, and they all know it's me. The Donald Duck thing, I think one of the things I used to say to my friends when they would be messing with me is I'd say, "Oh, shut up! I don't want to do it."
That is brilliant. Why did you never do voiceovers?
I don't know. Just never really thought about it, I guess.
That's insane. The next one is from Torsten from South Australia. Where are you...
Oh, yeah.
We've touched on this a little bit as well. Where are you currently career-wise, or what is next on your list? Next on the list.
As far as the entertainment industry as an actor, I don't have any kind of plans or huge desires to be getting into anything at the time. My biggest thing is focusing on the career that I have with the rent-to-own store and taking care of my customers, kind of like being on the fan page, taking care of fans. So this is kind of where I'm at for the time. I'm going to be doing a meet and greet in Oklahoma City April the 2nd, and there sounds like there's going to be a really good turnout to that. So, from there, who knows? Maybe I'll make it to another con wherever the fans are at sometime in the future.
How far is California from Oklahoma? I'm used to saying OKC because I'm a basketball fan. You just call them OKC.
Yeah. For the Thunder?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are, I think it's like 22-hour drive or something.
Wow.
1,300 miles away.
Oh, that's
like,
pretty decent.
I'm basically in the middle of the United States, where California is on the west coast.
Right, okay. So are you closer to like Indiana or Connecticut or...
Texas is just south of me.
Yeah.
So like Dallas, Texas. That's not too far away. Wow. Being right in the middle of everything here, it's a long ways to any of the other big places, but I'd say Dallas is probably one of the other biggest places close by.
Alex from Blountstown, Florida, wants to know, would you want to be in any Marvel movies?
Wow, wouldn't that be awesome? Anybody would love to be in a Marvel movie. Those are so huge, and the graphics that they do in that stuff, the tricks, and being able to fly through the air and the powers they give people. Yeah, of course. Anybody that would say no, they got to be crazy.
And finally, Ryan from Towson, Maryland, wants to know, what movies or TV shows did you grow up watching as a kid, and why did you enjoy them?
Well, that's going to be a little hard to answer there. Let's see, I remember watching the Smurfs, liked the characters, Scooby-Doo because he was funny. I'm sure there was a whole bunch of other ones that I watched, but it's hard enough for me to remember yesterday, much less 30 or more years ago.
What about were you a sitcom person? Were you more of a drama person? What kind of genre did you go to? Were you a cartoon person?
Well, like the animated cartoons were the cartoons. Lassie, it was a show about a dog, and Little House on the Prairie were probably some of the bigger shows back at the time that I was little. I think Lassie was great because I really liked dogs. Little House on the Prairie, it's because I guess Oklahoma is kind of like prairie land, so it kind of fit with, where I live.
Justin, thank you very much for talking to me today. It's great looking back in the past and your experiences and how you remember all of it. And I hope you get out to some more cons very soon, maybe even pop over to Australia for a quick visit.
I've definitely been thinking about it, you bet. So
Yeah.
I appreciate your time, and you guys have a wonderful day. It's nighttime here.